Welcome back to the Cave of Wonders, Dreamwalkers. I am your Sith Lord Callous. I am where Star Wars lives, and this is another Rancorous reaction. Now, I just got finished watching and recording my reaction to the Star Wars Episode 9 Rise of Skywalker final trailer. Now, that reaction was just based off of the trailer that I watched at halftime. Okay, so this will be my second viewing, okay, only my second viewing of this trailer now. And I just wanted to take another look. I wanted to be able to put it in my ears because I'm one that works off of feeling, and you know, the music is really what envelops me in the story. And so listening to it out loud and listening to it in your ears makes a little bit of a difference. So I want to take a listen in the ears, and I want to be able to see if there's anything that I missed. But let's take a look. All right, here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hit it.
It's an instinct. A feeling. Force brought us together. We're not alone. Good people will fight if we lead them.
People keep telling me they know me. No one does.
But I do.
Long have I waited, and now you're coming together. Is your undoing.
What are you doing there, 3PO?
Taking one last look, sir, at my friends.
Confronting fear is the destiny of a Jedi. Your destiny. The Force will be with you.
Always.
All right. So, like I said before, it's a good trailer, but even after a second look, my opinion is still pretty much the same. With the exception of the C-3PO line, it lacks the feel of an epic finale for me. This is the end of a saga spanning more than 40 years, and it just feels like another trailer. Perhaps my level of expectations are simply too high, but let's go through it and let's talk about it. So, this opening scene with Rey running through the forest is shot well. I love seeing her training with this remote droid. The nod to the speeder helmet is pretty cool too, from Return of the Jedi, as it hastily falls to the ground, making me think that Rey may have been piloting a speeder bike with the remote chasing her, and she quickly jumps off. I like how this shot feels urgent and is in motion continuously. A few questions arise for me though after both viewings. First, how did she rebuild the lightsaber? And will we see the process take place, or should we assume it happened between the movies? And why did she choose to rebuild Anakin's saber and not construct her own? Those are just a couple of the questions that popped into my head. And in this next shot, while it looks great and we can clearly see that Rey is inside the Death Star, I would have preferred to see a shot of the Sith Troopers or the Knights of Ren. We don't get either in this trailer, and I just feel like that was a miss, considering they are probably two of the most highly anticipated groups of characters to be mentioned for this movie. Now, as the trailer progresses, each character says something significant to the role they play during their time on screen. This is important because Finn's narration in the beginning speaks to the Force, bringing them together. This, I believe, is a nod to The Force Awakens and JJ's intention to make Finn Force sensitive. It was the Force, after all, that guided him to Rey on Jakku. The next shot is the Resistance base with Poe narrating. Could this be Batuu? And the final resting place for the Falcon. It would appear to me that this is more of a rally point than a finale. We see 3PO, we see Lando, Poe, Finn, Akbar Jr., and they appear to be in the garbs they are wearing in what I assume is the first act of the movie. If you look to the surrounding areas, you see vegetation around the Falcon. The next shot with Rose in the foreground is devastating. She, Billy, and Dominic are clearly fixated on something, while everyone else seems to be scrambling in the other direction. Then we see a Corellian Corvette skim the treetops, which I thought was pretty cool because the Vet always takes me to A New Hope and KOTOR, so I like the nostalgia introduced with that ship. Then we hear Rey on the Death Star ruins. This is a beautiful shot, I have to admit. She says, "People keep telling me they know me, but no one does." There's a lot that can be interpreted from that line. Could she mean physically or in the Force? Could they be referring to a time in the past or just in the immediate time period? Is this a nod to who her parents are or were? Then Kylo Ren approaches, igniting his lightsaber. He says, "But I do," in response. But how? In what respect? Through Snoke's bond? Or is he too referring to a time in the past? It cuts to a watery ice planet, or maybe the entire planet isn't this way. Perhaps it's just this particular part of the planet. We can't be sure. The First Order TIE fighters swarm in like bees, converging on what I will assume is Palpatine's resting place. And this scene very much gives me the feeling that this is some sort of an adaptation of the Dark Forces novel. Are we looking at Wayland reimagined? Is this an interpretation of the mountain where Palpatine stored his cloning facility? The destroyers under the ice? Are they the Dark Force fleet? And we're witnessing the katana reemerge. Then as Palpatine's voice booms through the speakers, I have to admit that I am not the biggest fan of him returning, simply because it undermines the prophecy of the Chosen One. Yes, I know, a prophecy that misread could have been. But with conclusion of Return of the Jedi, we saw that the prophecy was fulfilled, the destruction of the Sith with the redemption of Anakin and the death of Darth Sidious. His return discredits Anakin's claim as the Chosen One. Unless, as the Chosen One, the Force is balanced through the birth of his children, Luke and Leia, who destroy this threat of Palpatine, and effectively, Anakin remains the Chosen One. But let's move on. Next, we see a horde of rebel ships, one of which is the Ghost, and I wonder if it's being piloted by Kanan and Hera's son, Jacen Syndulla. It has been 30 years since the events of the Return of the Jedi, so he would be nearly 40 years old at this point. That would be a cool twist or revelation. Next, we see the crew together on the Falcon, but oddly enough, Rose is not in this shot, so I'm curious. What kind of role is she playing in all of this? Because her introduction in The Last Jedi was kind of the same insertion into the main group as we got with Lando in the original trilogy. But once Lando joined the group, he was always prominent in the story. Here we have Rey to Luke, we have Poe to Han, we have Finn to Leia. Rose, like Lando, was introduced in the second film and was a significant part of the story from that point on. I don't know, it was just odd to me to see her missing. Moving on though. Next we have a duel between Rey and Kylo, and then another beautiful shot of Rey on a water skiff traversing the waves as she makes her way to the ruins of the Death Star. And the chaos subsides as we have an intimate moment with C-3PO. My heart skipped listening to what sounds like are going to be his final words. And as he's speaking those words, all I can think about is The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and even The Force Awakens as he remained by Leia's side. No more goldenrod, no more shut him up or shut him down. It's the end of the saga. And for me, that's a little sad. BB-8 and D-O are there for 3PO and R2 to pass the torch, so to speak. And we get a new alien, Babu Frick, or Babu Frick, whatever. He is likely a Porg of this episode, in my opinion, and by that I just mean he's meant to be cute and help with merchandising. The next shot with Finn, Poe, and Chewbacca running through a corridor of a First Order Star Destroyer or perhaps a base of some sort, that looks pretty good. They seem to have abandoned all sense of danger because they are recklessly running and gunning, and quite literally dodging blaster bolts as they skim by their heads. Watching this made me wonder if we're going to be introduced to the Force is in everyone concept, or was it always intended for Poe to have the Force? Is that why he flies so well? Interesting. Leia with Rey is a shot we've seen before, as well as the shots with Poe and Finn on the skiff, but we get a very powerful quote from Luke at this point in the trailer, when he says, "Confronting fear is the destiny of a Jedi, your destiny." Most will assume that he is talking to Rey at this point, or possibly even Kylo Ren, but what if he's talking to his sister Leia, or Finn? We know Leia was fearful for Kylo, afraid that Snoke would sink his teeth into her son and lure him to the dark side. In The Force Awakens, Finn spent nearly the entire movie fearful of the First Order's wrath, and then again in The Last Jedi, he was fearful of Rey's death. I would love this line to apply to the not-so-obvious, a subversion of expectations, if you will. At the same time, we get a shot of Lando and Chewie in the Falcon, and we see a Y-Wing dutifully handing out the business to a few TIE fighters before it cuts to Finn and Jannah leading the charge, accompanied by BB-8 on top of their Orbaks, the riding beasts that resemble a crossbreed between a horse and a wild boar. That's the best way for me to describe them. But it appears as though they are on the hull of a Star Destroyer, or maybe this is the Colossus from the Resistance series. But it's definitely a ship that is rising into the clouds. I'm very interested to know what the heck is going on here. Another confrontation between Rey and Kylo, and in the Death Star's throne room. I believe this is a shot of the Emperor's throne, destroyed. But in the next shot with Rey and Kylo destroying that statue together, some believe that may be Darth Vader's helmet, but Rey is holding a dagger in her left hand, possibly the Sith dagger, or possibly the dagger of Mortis. And the aesthetics of this room, or this chamber, give me a feel of Camino and the cloning facility. Could we be looking at the Emperor's cloning facilities? The statue just gives me a Sith artifacts kind of a feel, but I could be misreading this entirely. Interestingly, every other shot Kylo is unmasked, so I wonder at what point this scene is taking place in the movie. We get a grander view of the space battle and a look at a B-Wing and a couple of TIE daggers. The next shot is of Rey confronting the Emperor. They appear to be either outside or perhaps inside of a temple. It could even be a dream sequence as you look at what's around her. Freeze the frame on the 2-minute mark and you can see what looks like a cliff behind her. This just doesn't appear to be a natural setting to me. And then to conclude the trailer, we hear the voice of both Luke and Leia Skywalker, which is fitting as we close out this Skywalker saga. So what's next? Honestly, I hope they begin to dive into some unexplored regions of the Star Wars universe.
Give us some brand new content to build on this wonderful lore. I have my tickets. I'm anxious to see just how this saga will end. I love Star Wars, and if you're watching this video all the way to the end, I know you do too. Thank you for watching. I do what I love. I hope you love what I do. This has been a Rancorous review and reaction. Until next time.